Welcome back to KTN Prime, and thank you so much for staying with us. As I mentioned earlier, we're set to interrogate Ruto at 3, because on a day like this, it was a Tuesday on September 13th specifically in 2022. That's when President William Ruto assumed Kenya's highest seat after a campaign that dubbed him the champion of hustlers and a defender of Kenya's democratic processes. Now, 3 years later, it has been baptism by fire, characterized by protests, various policy changes at the national level, economic turmoil, and fierce political battles that resulted into the broad-based government, or as critics term it, the bread-based government. A lot has happened in the last 3 years, and we want to take a look at the gains that have been made since President William Ruto took oath of office and assumed presidency. Not just the gains, some of the challenges his administration has faced as well. And equally, he has 2 years to go till the 2027 general election. What needs to be done, perhaps, to change the narrative and make sure that he truly delivers on the promises made under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. I'm joined by the sharpest minds on television tonight. Allow me to introduce them. Seniors first, so I'll start with Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who's a law professor at Daystar and Catholic University, but of course he was the previous Makueni governor, serving for 2 terms. Professor, thank you so much for your time. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
It seems we can't shake off that former tag. It goes with you wherever. Interesting. Anyway, equally joined by Dr. Barak Muluka, political scientist, but equally happens to be the Secretary General of the Democratic National Alliance Party, DNA, abbreviated that way. How are you doing, Daktari? Karibu sana.
Fine, former Secretary General of ANC.
Which is no longer there. So, interesting. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
and
you.
I'd like us to begin where we should, at the very beginning, because it's been a tumultuous 3 years. He hit the ground running. It wasn't too easy. He didn't have a honeymoon period. And we just want to begin with your evaluation of Ruto's administration and some of the things he's been able to achieve so far. So in order to judge fairly, as I mentioned, let's begin where we should, at the initial stage. When he got to office, there were a couple of key policy decisions that were made. Introduction of the fertilizer subsidy program. He did away with the subsidy for food and fuel prices that was there in the previous administration. We equally saw him stabilizing the weekend shilling, among other interventions. Let's just hear to a couple of sound bites hinting at some of his priority areas in that first year of his administration: the price of gas, the price of unga. Let's just listen into some of the statements that were made by the head of state back in his first year of this administration.
Leo mnanunua mtungi ya gas shilingi 2,000, shilingi 2,800. Tumesema sasa tutaweka pesa ya serikali kupunguza gharama ya mtungi ya gas. Ile ya kilo 6 mnanunua 2,500, 2,800, tutaishukisha chini mpaka shilingi 500 ama 300. We're going to spend about 12 billion shillings subsidizing fertilizer for our farmers because it is important. And tuliamua sisi ya kwamba we are not going to subsidize consumption. We are going to subsidize production because that's how intelligent people do it.
Okay, just a snippet of some of the statements that were made by the head of state. Prof, I'd like to begin with you on this particular matter, because I hinted at the removal of fuel subsidies and food subsidies. He focused on subsidizing agriculture through fertilizer. What make you of some of these statements that were made by the head of state and policy changes in his first term in office and the first year of his first term in office? Did it bring the economic stability? Looking back, was this a necessary sacrifice in order to bring long-term economic stability to the country?
Thank you very much. Let me begin by saying I am not very happy today because we lost my student, Charlo Mbovu, and also a resident of Makueni County through very senseless killing. Actually, it has all the marks of assassination, and so it hasn't been a good day. And may his family, be comforted.
And find justice.
I wish Muluka could start as I recollect my mind.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd also like to associate myself with those sentiments because I knew Charlo Mbovu. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Mm-hmm. Right, I think, Jesse, you are starting at the wrong end. You're placing the cart before the horse.
Okay.
And I think that's why Professor is passing the ball to me. To contextualize these things, we need to start by asking ourselves quite independently why government is constituted in society and how Dr. Ruto's verbal promissory notes of this date 3 years ago fit in that broader context, rather than allowing ourselves to be narrowed in his own corridors and prisms. And I think when we look at purposes for which governments are constituted, a good starting point within liberal democracies to borrow from the American Declaration of Independence that it is about life, it is about liberty, it is about the pursuit of happiness. Now, when you talk about the cost of living, the subsidies, whether they are of fuel, whether they are of fertilizers, when we talk about the economy, we are looking at the third tier, which is that of pursuit of the things that enable life to be comfortable, the things that, in the manner of speaking, would bring us some level of happiness. But to be happy, we must first be alive. And therefore, the first primary responsibility of government is protection of limb and life. And that is where, when we assess the performance of any government, we must begin there. The liberal democracy philosophers laid a lot of emphasis on that, the right to life. And we are not even talking about massive populations, although we are very aware that we have lost lives in their massive quantities. We are talking of even an individual life. And then from there, the liberty. And those were the things which President William Ruto, from my estimation of him, made some very profound promissory notes in Kasarani on that day. He said he was going to be a different kind of leader, quite distinct from President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was handing over the reins of power to him on that day. And as a demonstration of the kind of government that he was going to lead, he was going to allow institutions freedom, especially the independent entities. As a demonstration of that, on that self-same day, he swore in the judges of the Court of Appeal, whom President Uhuru Kenyatta had refused to swear in. And I think that then defined the kind of path that President William Ruto was expected to walk. And all these other things, whether it's such a percentage or it has dropped here or it has risen here, they were going to be subsidiary to his government. Governments are eventually judged and determined on the basis of their records in the arena of human rights. And that has been a disaster. And I think that that is the kind of canvas that we want to paint on.
Interesting. He mentioned about human life and human rights, property, some of the promises he's sworn as taking oath of office. Talk to us about the state of the civic space in the country. Some say it has shrunk. Some say these freedoms of expression have actually been eroded over time due to some of the injustices meted out by the Kenya Kwanza administration. But what's your evaluation of the civic space? Has it shrunk? Is this government keen on ensuring these freedoms guaranteed by the 2010 Constitution are upheld?
I think if and when we want to evaluate what the president has done for these 3 years of his presidency, we need also to go back to 10 years when he was a deputy president. Because if it is, for example, Kibaki, Kibaki was not a vice president when he became president. Also Uhuru was not like a vice president when he became president. So, he had, 10 years of learning how to do the job. And actually in the first term, he did say, by his own, authority, that he was a co-president. So when we are judging him, we must take into account that particular period. But now, when he's in charge as president, actually, it is possible that we have witnessed a deterioration of the human rights space unknown since 1963. And that is one of the most worrying things. And if it was not for the 2010 Constitution, matters would even be worse. I think he struggles with what to do with this Constitution because it is stopping him from doing some of the things that he would like to see. So even in terms of, the human rights space, the civil society space generally, as we witnessed in terms of when young people, rose to say that, this is not right. 2 years down the road, and now 3 years down the road, you're not abiding by the Constitution, the government is not working, corruption is endemic, and all the things that the young people said, said, even some were alpha who are coming onto the streets. Even recently, you have, girls from a girls' school also, protesting and even apparently overpowering the police. I think the basic problem was, first of all, overpromise in terms of the things that, he wanted to do. And having gone around in the country in ways which people thought were legitimate in terms of sourcing views from the 47 counties, doing actually public participation, something that Omtata is doing, going around the country trying to ask people whether he should be a president. I think he has, done some, he has walked a bit in the country. But, the moment you do that, and therefore people believe that what they have given you and what you have promised will be delivered. And what is the rejoinder? The rejoinder is you tell people things and then very quickly they discover they're not true. And unfortunately, in today's world, whatever you say is recorded permanently. And so the young people have fun juxtaposing what you said and what you're saying and showing that dissonance. So, when you asked me to come here today, I was just wondering, what are some of the positive things I'm going to say and, say things I believe in. And I'm sure now as we go on, we will discuss some of those. But if there are people who are genuinely close to the president and who tell him the truth, I'm sure they would be telling him that the country is in a bad place. And therefore, in the remaining 2 years, there is significant remedial work to be done, if it is possible, so that the president can, possibly save his image from what he promised earlier on. And it is my prayer that this will come to pass.
Okay, so from where you sit, he overpromised, and that's one of the key issues he's facing right now. Because listening from the president, and he's spoken about this, because he says critics tell him, hey, you overpromised. And this is what he has to say when he mentions that he has to make hard choices that others feared in a bid to reshape Kenya's future through bold and necessary reforms. Let's just listen in to what President William Ruto had to say when he was put to task on matters over-promising and under-delivering. Listen in.
Mimi nimelaumiwa sana. I've been accused of over-promising. Sindio? Meambiwa na watu wengi, wewe umepromise kabisa Kenya, ulipromise. Mimi nataka niwaeleze, it is not over-promising. We are raising our ambition as a nation. Unajua kwa muda mrefu tumekuwa tunakaa hapa average. Hapo average. We must stop being average. Yes, we must strive to be better and excellent. That is my mission. And I want to tell you, every promise I made, I intend to keep it in my term.
Okay, Daktari, what do you make of such a statement in terms of raising the ambition of a nation? Is this political manipulation at the end of the day, or giving credit? He's putting his mouth, his money where his mouth is, yeah?
I think, Jesse, we are an ambitious people as Kenyans, and we learned to be ambitious even before President William Ruto happened. And when you see the Gen Zs coming out there in the streets, the millennials, and now I'm told even the alphas are starting to occupy that space, it's because we are ambitious. And President William Ruto is dragging us down beneath the bar of our ambitious expectations. When our nation is where we are as Kenyans today, and you have a president who, as a professor says here, signed 48 charters with the citizens, 47 with each one of the 47 counties, and a 48th one with the nation as a whole. And we see that the president has digressed from those promissory notes. It is either that he was suffering from notions of grandeur. In yesterday's standard, I referred to them as quixotic illusions after a gentleman who was called Don Quixote de la Mancha in Miguel Savant's novel, which a professor here is very profoundly familiar with. Or he has encountered obstacles along the way, and therefore he is in the headwinds of unexpected failure. Or third, and which is more likely, most likely, is that all these promises were strategic deception. Strategic deception in the sense that you want to believe that the people will believe you for the time being, but having ambled some distance with you, they will forget. But you also try to construct a narrative, and social science is full of these kinds of characters. You find them in George Orwell, whom I like referring to frequently. You find them in Animal Farm. You find them in 1984, where lies are transformed to become the truth. And you get the nation to thrive on slogans such as war is peace, ignorance is strength, and so on and so forth. So you lie to the people, you get them to a state where they are able to accommodate in their intellect two ideas that are diametrically opposed to one another, and they start believing things like you overpromised. No, we were beguiled, and even the finest of us were beguiled. We believed for the time being in the things that President William Ruto was saying. And once he got into that house on the hill, once the Bible had come down and the sword remained in a strategic place where he could see it, he could keep his eye on it, and he understood that he was not given that sword for cutting sukuma wiki and sundry vegetables, then he threw away the 48 charters and started doing very different things. Let us face it, this government's loyalty is in only one thing. It's loyal only to accumulation of wealth for the individuals at the very top in the most unscrupulous of manners possible, and everything else is deceit. If President Ruto attempted at all to implement the charters that he promised the 47 counties of this country, he would not be talking about over-promising, about raising the bar, because we understand the kind of life and standards that we want to live as a nation. We have seen this afternoon, and we saw yesterday about the new Hustler jet, what it's costing. We have seen the kind of expenditure that this country is incurring over tea, and for the record, this is just water, in case...
By your request, yes.
in case Kenyans are wondering. But how can you have tea being taken in State House running into billions of shillings, and without batting an eye, you say, yes, that is justifiable, that I've opened up Ikulu, I'm demystifying government. The priorities are upside down. Where is the priority in bringing down the roof of the State House buildings and replacing it with another one, when you have pulsating, competing priorities? Priorities such as keeping children in schools. Schools are closing in this country ahead of time, Professor, because there is no capitation. But money is being splurged around. There is opulent living, ostentatious, unbridled, undisguised, conspicuous consumption. That is the challenge.
So the austerity measures is simply let's talk.
It's just a sweet talk. It's just fudge. And I think President William Ruto operates in an environment where he thinks that he's the only intelligent person in this country. In fact, he looks at the rest of us and he says, if they are intelligent, why is it that they are not the president? I'm the most intelligent person. I'll not listen to anybody. If I bring you around me to advise me, please wait for me to advise you what you should, how you should advise me. And because of that, he has lost it. He has lost it in the sense that the people who sit around him have become sycophants who read his lips and tell him what they know he would like to hear. And it is known as a fact that cabinet meetings are lecture sessions. No harm intended, Professor. When I met Professor for the first time in the 1970s at the University of Nairobi, I was a student and he was a lecturer. And he knows that in those lectures, information flowed one way. We didn't even have the luxury of raising our hands like they do in high school to ask a question or to disagree. But we had tutorials.
Yes.
And in those tutorials, you would now engage so that you have the opportunity also to think and to reason. But here is a situation where this country must accept that it is in the grip of a one-man rule assisted by a poodle, a lapdog that crossed over from the other side of the aisle and joined in. And whenever things go wrong, the poodle barks to stop you. The lapdog that came in from ODM.
Interesting. Referring to the broad-based government. Since he touched on matters economy just briefly, I'd like your take on the fight against graft, because we've seen major pronouncements from the head of state ever since he assumed office. Remembering Mambo ni Matatu, I think that was in 2023. Just this year, we've had him pointing fingers at Parliament, saying they're quite corrupt in terms of what happens at the committee levels. Talk to us about this fight against corruption, because legal and institutional frameworks have been put down. Conflict of Interest Act is now law, whatnot. We've seen EACC making a couple of arrests not too long ago in terms of devolved corruption. But are we truly winning this fight against corruption? If you ask the government proponents, they'll say we're digitizing procurement. EGP is a way of fighting corruption. So we're making steps in the right direction. Do you believe this is the case?
You know, if there were steps being made in the right direction, we would see the results. And that is why, even before I talk specifically about corruption, like if you have a fertilizer project, then it shouldn't be accompanied by corruption, where even, you know, fertilizer laced, you know, with sand was kind of being, you know, sold. And therefore, if you have genuine fertilizer, we should see, you know, food security, which is one of the most basic things. If, for example, his government was able to make us be food secure so that households, you know, have food, that would have been a very important contribution to this country. If you come to the healthcare system, again, there was the previous healthcare system, the NHIF. And instead of that being improved, you have a new system where, first of all, to set it up, you spend like over 1 billion shillings.
104.
104 shillings. So again, one, you know, wonders, why do you destroy something that has been working instead of improving it? And of course, health is a county function. And if there is going to be movement in that area, really counties must take, you know, must be at the front of that. But the national government decided that it was going to lead a county function. And I remember, you know, when I used to work in Makueni, we did a universal healthcare program for Makueni where people were just paying a household 500 shillings. And for 6 years, it worked. So, and one can continue, you know, we can talk about the Constitution, which is not, you know, being followed, particularly by, you know, the executive. This perennial fight with the judiciary. And it is that same judiciary where the president said, I'm going to give you an independent fund. And, you know, the judges, as my colleague said, will be, the judges which were not appointed will be appointed. So, you see, for everything that the president begins to implement and to make some strides, it is accompanied by a reversal. So one wonders, you know, one can wonder, why is it so? And these things properly, you know, thought about, are they not properly planned? or is the system that is being implemented a procurement-based government? Because you can have a government that you procure, when you're making any procurement, particularly the large ones, you really know how the end will be and who will get what, and so on and so forth. So, so that is why, therefore, the university students, what Daktari was talking about, actually the public universities are kind of collapsing. He talked about even lower level. They are kind of collapsing, so that many parents now are trying to take their kids to the private universities, like where I teach. And it means that only the parents who are well-to-do can afford that kind of thing, because even help itself is not flowing as it should. The money that government is supposed to help students who are not well-to-do. So, I mean, one wants to be charitable. One wants to actually find things that are working, so that one can perhaps not be mean, and then say, this is working, and this is working, and so on and so forth. Of course, the dollar at 129 or so for 9-10 months, it has been stable, and one wants to know whether it's because of
manipulation, whether it's
what drives that, whether it's real economics or whatever else drives that. But for 10 months or so. So when it comes to corruption, unfortunately, this period is being defined by massive corruption. Everywhere. There's hardly any major project that you can examine and you will not see that there's a trail of corruption within it. And even when you see the kind of figures which attend these projects, you can see that they're inflated and all that kind of stuff. We have this impossible debt, which we, now it's gone into almost 12 trillion, 12 trillion. And so that is actually one of the basic problems, because if you have to pay the interest, now I think it must be like almost going to 8 shillings from 10 we pay, for the debts. It used to be 7. I think it must be 7.5 or going to 8. And therefore, to tell people that there's going to be any development, it's not possible. It is not possible, because by the time you pay the salaries at the national level, the public servants are about 1 million. Teachers in the counties, everybody. So by the time you pay those, and then the recurrent, and the recurrent is, what was being described, where, it's a party. So it means that even now, unless the president was tell Kenyans, we are now in a bad situation. Maybe we are not going to get any development as such. Maybe that's why I'm doing the empowerment programs to give the impression that everywhere there can be money, quickly. So in terms of corruption, even the ECC itself, and I am a proponent of saying that there is potential if the ECC is, let alone, and if from the very top, because to fight corruption, you start fighting it from the very top. When Kibaki came into power, citizens were already beginning to arrest police people, but after a short while, then they realized that they were not supposed to do that. When, Kibaki was unwell, and there were other guys, around him and so on. So, like this new procurement system, if it was open contracting, real open contracting, so that all information is on the table about any procurement, then we would be talking about, seriousness. If EACC could prosecute, I believe, like what happens in Tanzania, I think Uganda, their equivalent is able to investigate and prosecute in just the corruption, space. They're starved of budget. They don't get enough budget. They don't have enough, staff. So sometimes to expect, even now, the commission itself, in one of the most critical commissions, is part-time. Previously, it used to be full-time. Yeah. So actually, a lot of the work has to be done by the secretariat, not even the commission. So no wonder Bishop Oginde had to pray in State House so that there could be some divine intervention.
Interesting. Dr. Ari, he mentioned matters to do with empowerment programs. Just talk to us about the economics around this, because apart from pleasing the masses and the optics, many question how financial handouts don't provide sustainable solutions. Is this a similar case?
I think all these are illusions and delusions, creating impressions of a working government, to create a narrative that there is development happening, that there are people being empowered. To empower the people of this country, President William Ruto would have to go back to the charters that he signed. And those charters had very clear documentation of what he was supposed to be doing, even where the funds would be coming from. But as I have observed, and Prof agrees, it's a felonious state. It's a state that wants to create impressions, to create optics, that is keen, exceedingly and feverishly eager to be seen to be doing something for the citizens, and that is living on daily installments of impressions and hoping that those impressions can have a lasting impact in society. So that you are dealing with a regime which is concurrently embezzling, because this corruption that we talk about will cease tomorrow morning if the person at the very top makes a decision that we are going to end corruption in this country. If you are my son, I will come to visit you in prison, the way other people go to visit their relatives in prison. If you are my spouse, I'll come to visit you in jail. If you are my friend, and I really think that you are a friend whom I should hold onto my bosom, I will come to visit you in jail. But when you have this lip service to the rule of law, lip service to the war against corruption, how can you even find the mouth with which to speak about Parliament when it is very clear that you are the one who is holding Parliament hostage, that Parliament is whipped in State House? I have lived in this country long enough to know that before this dispensation and the one immediately before it, Parliament was never whipped in State House. Even President Moi, who has been excoriated in so many forums and in so many places, he never whipped Parliament in State House. He would come to Parliament, and of course he was a member of Parliament for Baringo Central, and so he would come there. Of course, he had his own choreography there, which he stage managed in his own way, but gave it a semblance of democracy. So this is a felonious state ab initio. It's a felonious state that, look at even what I have referred to as the lapdog or as the poodle. Look at ODM joining up with UDA to form government outside the Constitution. And if I'm wrong, the lawyer is here. Professor, you used to teach constitutional law.
I still do.
At the University of Nairobi, when I was an undergrad there, of course, in a different faculty. The Constitution says clearly in Article 3(2) that anyone who attempts to form government in a manner other than that provided in this Constitution acts unlawfully. And that article, together with Article 2, together with the Political Parties Act, are very clear on how coalitions shall be formed before and after elections. These two gentlemen come together, they shake hands mysteriously, they cobble some document which they call a 10-point agenda, they appoint a cabinet together, they appoint principal secretaries together, they appoint ambassadors and other envoys together, they appoint other people in semi-autonomous government agencies together, and they say that they are not in one government. They hold political party parliamentary group meetings together. That is breach of the law. And in fact, the question is, where are the rest of us? What are we doing about these illegalities? Okay. So once you have a government that is behaving like that, a government that wears the face of impunity, that breaks the law in broad daylight, and it's not bothered what the citizens think, then I think that is a nation in trouble. There is hardly anything redeeming value in an entity like this one. It's like asking me whether Al Capone has made any gains for the United States of America, or whether the mafia have made any gains for the people of Italy. We are in a bad place, and we must accept that we are in a terribly bad place. We need to return to the rule of law.
Prof, our county is in a bad place. Has this government enhanced devolution? Because we've heard of the 14 devolved functions. The president mentioned that they should go to the counties. We don't know if they've truly been devolved, and money should follow functions at the end of the day. But equally, talk to us about the increase in equitable shareable revenue. They mentioned that this is a way of enhancing devolution. We're not where we're supposed to be, but there's been progress in terms of increased allocation. What's happening with the counties from where you sit 3 years into this administration?
I think actually, even as we often criticize the counties, one of the saving graces is at least there is some minimum development which happens through the counties, because previously money or resources were very centralized, and the center decided where to send, monies to, and that is why we used to talk about marginalized, areas and so on and so forth. So at least, particularly the first term and the second term, there was a change that was noticeable in terms of what, places where there had been no, proper hospitals, even tarmac, roads and so on, like northeastern, Kenya, where they used to say, how is the rest of Kenya? How is Kenya? So that did happen. But unfortunately, still the national government, like if it's health, most of the money for health still stays at, the center. Agriculture, the national government is involved in significant, agriculture in terms of, the funding, water. So you can really mention, many areas which are under the fourth schedule, county functions. And the government says that, the national government says that they have been transferred. But in reality, the national government is still holding back, particularly the funds. And even this idea of you need to procure medical equipment, for the counties. Sometimes you procure, they don't even have the houses to, put those equipment. They don't have the staff and all that kind of stuff. Or national government employs some people, then later tells the counties, now they are going to be your employees, and there is no money following that. So even in that space, actually, one of the things that was expected was this president was very pro-devolution, because he used to talk a lot, about devolution. Historically, Rift Valley having said Majimbo, devolution, and all that kind of stuff. But now, even one basic thing that has never happened, the costing of these functions. So that even as you say, health is to the counties, agriculture is to the counties, what is, some infrastructure and so on. There was no, from the original transitional authority, even later, to say that this is how much, so that when budgets are being made, they are real budgets. There is the ultimate body called the summit, where the president sits with the governors. And there is a chair, the president, and another chair, the chair of the Council of Governors. Many of those decisions are never implemented. There is talk and talk. When those meetings occur, they're supposed to be, I think, twice a year. And there is no follow-up. So actually, if devolution was implemented, properly, then that actually would help us to do some of the things and even to meet some of the expectations of the citizens. And of course, we must also make the point that in the counties, corruption also should not be a factor. Because if it's a factor, given that the 15% is not also a lot of money, and about 70% goes into salaries and recurrent expenditure, other recurrent expenditure, then it would mean that even with all those bureaucracies, with the county public service boards of 47, the bureaucracies 47, and all that kind of stuff, it would mean that we don't have as good a value for devolution as we would. So, every time you think about where you can say there's a glimmer of hope, you're just seeing that, darkness is enveloping the kind of light and hope you want, you want to see.
Okay. So as we finalize, gentlemen, 3 years down the line, are Kenyans at a better place, socially, economically, politically? Is it all gloom and gray? Is there any semblance of progress that has been made by this Ruto administration? Briefly, let's start with you, Dr.
I think the gains or the glimmer of hope in spite of the black moon. There was a black moon a few days ago. The credit goes to the people rather than to the government on account of the resilience that they continue to demonstrate. It goes to the more youthful populations for standing out steadfast. And I think they have no choice anyway but to stand out and be steadfast. We are living in those times when the scholar said that you have nothing to lose but your chains. So the credit goes to the people in that regard for protecting even the space for liberty that we still must be able to express ourselves. It must never be surrendered, and that the push goes on. The rest of those fellows are on the gravy train.
Prof.
Yes, I think I want to support Daktari in terms of saying that the youth have breathed some life into this country at very great cost, and it is expected that since they are the inheritors of our country, they should not relent, but expand it to all generations. I wish there was the possibility of some dialogue. I don't know what form, because as a country, at some point that becomes necessary. Even during the Katiba days, we didn't have a prior dialogue to say what is the Kenya that we want. But the young people are saying they don't want dialogue, they just want the constitution followed, and they want, all those things. But let me say that the constitution really is a guard against the country going down. And one thing that, I would ask of the president, if I was allowed to ask and I had the opportunity to ask, would be, please don't let us go to 2007-8 in 2027-28. Even if you don't do anything else, don't let us go into that period. And when that happens, and it's my prayer it will happen, I think Kenyans will say, at least that was one thing done so that the country is preserved to go forward. But also the people in the political space need to reorganize themselves because the president is very good at last mile politics. He's not a pushover.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. We weren't able to converse all the issues, but definitely you've added some input, valued input into these matters that we've been able to take a look at as we mark 3 years of the Ruto administration. Just to remind you, he took oath of office on September 13th, and it's just a few days away to mark that 3-year milestone. Well, I was joined in studio by Dr. Barak Muluka, a political scientist and the Secretary General of the DNA Party, and Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who is a Professor of Law at Catholic and Daystar University. Thank you so much for your input, gentlemen. That's how we wrap up tonight's edition of KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're adequately informed. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. I'm Jesse Rogers. On behalf of Ashley Mazuri and the entire team, we say good evening, good night.